Yep, that looks good. Let's go. Okay, so these are the 3 pages from today. So the first thing we're talking about is today's goal is to look at all of the angles that are formed by parallel lines. So basically, all you're going to see today in the IXL and in your work and on the notes are you're going to see a set of parallel lines, so 2 parallel lines cut by a transversal is what they call that. So transversal is just a diagonal line that cuts through 2 parallel lines. And when you have 2 parallel lines in this diagonal cut through, what happens is it actually creates 8 different angles. It creates one here, 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 here. So it creates 8 different angles. And each of those 8 angles have different properties and names and things that we can know in order to find the measure. So the first ones that we're looking at on page 1 are your alternate interior angles. And the word usually gives it away. So alternate means the opposite side, alternate side. Interior means they've got to be on the inside of these 2 parallel lines, angles. So we're talking about angle 1 and 4 because they're alternate and they're both inside. And we're talking about angle 2 and 3. What we need to know about alternate interior angles is that they are congruent. So if I give you the measure of angle 1, then you know the measure of angle 4. If I give you the measure of angle 2, then you know the measure of angle 3. That's basically what we need to know about that. Now, you also, instead of giving you the measure of one of them, what I also can do is this example down here. I can say find the value of x. So, and without giving you the measure of these, you know that we're talking about this angle and this angle. They're alternate interiors, so you know they have to equal each other. And so then we go back to unit 1 and we're just setting up a basic equation and solving for x. So 8x minus 19 equals 6x plus 11. We then subtract the 2x, add the 19, divide by 2, and we get our answer. Now, it may ask you to find the value of x like it did here. It may also ask you to find the measure of the angle. If it asks you to find the measure of the angle, then we could plug 15 in, and we would say 6 times 15 is 90, plus 11 is 101. So we know that both angles are 101 degrees. So we can always plug it back in and figure out what it's going to be. So that is alternate interior angles. Now, on the bottom of this page is alternate exterior angles. So, again, the words give it away which ones we're talking about, but these are the other 4. So in alternate interior, we were talking about the 4 in the middle. Alternate exterior are talking about the 4 on the outside. So again, they're either above or below the parallel lines. They're on the outside of the parallel lines. And they're on opposite sides of that diagonal line, that transversal. And they are congruent. So again, if you know angle 1 in the top left, you know angle 4 in the bottom right. If you know angle 2 in the top right, you know angle 3 in the bottom left. And the same thing can be true with the alternate exterior angles. They can be set equal to each other. So 7x minus 16 equals 4x plus 20. We could just subtract the 4x and add the 16 and divide by 3, and we get 12. If we wanted to check our work, we could plug in 12. 4 times 12 is 48, plus 20 is 68. Then we could do the same thing with 7. 7 times 12 is 84, minus 16 is 68. So 68 equals 68, and we'll be like, okay, we're good. All right, so those are alternate interior and alternate exterior. In both of those on page 1 that I gave you, they are congruent. That means you set them equal to each other. If you know one, you know the other. Okay, let's go to page 2. So on page 2, we have what's called consecutive interior angles. Okay? So we're back talking about inside of the parallel lines. Consecutive interior. So these are between, like we just said, inside the parallel lines, and they're on the same side of the transversal. So that diagonal, they're going to be consecutive, just means straight down. They're on that same side. Or if the diagonal is the other way, it's still, the key is that they're on the same side of that transversal, that diagonal line. They are supplementary, which means that they're going to add up to 180. So angle 1 and 3 on the left side of that diagonal adds up to 180. Angles 2 and 4 on the right side of that diagonal adds up to 180. So they are what you call supplementary. Okay? Not to be confused with, what does it mean if they add up to 90? What word is that? Supplementary is if they add up to 180. What happens if... Complementary is if they add up to 90. So just make sure you know your vocabulary there. So complementary means they add up to 90. We don't have that here. We have supplementary, which means they add up to 180. So again, when they ask multiple choice questions, that could be something to get to. So notice what you would do here. If you have two angles and you want to find their measure, you have to add them together and say it equals 180. So two consecutive angles, 5x minus 19 and 4x plus 10, you would add them together to equal 180. And then we would be able to solve for x. So again, in all of these, we're just doing equations at the end of the day. But we're just trying to add them together to know that they equal 180. Some people, so again, a mistake that could happen is they could think that, oh, since these were equal, maybe I'll just set these equal to each other. If you set them equal to each other, you're going to get the wrong answer. So you've got to make sure you understand the alternate exterior and alternate interior. That's when I set them equal to each other. These have to add up to 180, so a little bit different. Okay? Let's look at the next one. The next one is called corresponding angles. And corresponding means if you're in a corresponding location, that means you're in the same spot. So if you think about it, think of this as one area or one house, and this as another area or another house. So angle 1 is in the top left, so its corresponding angle is also in the top left. It's angle 5. Angle 2 is in the top right, so angle 6 is in the top right. 3, bottom left. 7, bottom left. 4, bottom right. 8, bottom right. So if they're in corresponding spots, so if they're in the same spot, either top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, then they're going to be equal to each other. They're going to be congruent. So we know angle 1 and 5 are the same. We know angle 2 and 6 are the same. We know angle 3 and 7 are the same. And we know angle 4 and 8 are the same. Right? That's corresponding. So if you get a corresponding here, like this example, you get the top right and the top right, you set them equal to each other, just like we did the alternate interior and the alternate exterior, and you solve for x. Okay? That's page 2. So far we have alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive, and corresponding. Now we're going to move to the last page. These are vertical angles. Vertical angles are also congruent. Vertical, to me, basically means that it looks like you can fold them over each other. So 1 and 4, if you think about folding angle 1 down, it'll fold right there over angle 4. 2 and 3, 5 and 8, 6 and 7. So vertical means they're right across this intersection of the parallel line and the transversal. These are vertical angles. But if you took angle 7 and folded it, you took angle 5, if you folded your paper, you would be able to tell that they're the same. It says they share a vertex, meaning vertex is like this point right here. So angle 6 and angle 7, they share this point that means they're the same angle. If you look at them, you can tell they're the same measure just by looking at them. So they're congruent. So angle 1 and 4 are congruent. Angle 5 and 8, angle 2 and 3, and angle 6 and 7. Okay? And so you can do the same thing with vertical angles that you would have done with the other ones. You can set them equal to each other. So if we know these two, we see that they're vertical angles because they're right there opposite of each other. And we can say 16x minus 32 equals 12x plus 8. And then we can solve for x. So again, vertical angles are congruent, which leaves us with this last set of angles. These are called linear pairs. Some people call them just actually supplementary, or some people call them adjacent angles. Adjacent meaning right beside each other. So linear pairs are adjacent across the parallel line. So that means right beside each other, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or they could be adjacent across the transversal. So 1, 3 is also a 180. 2, 4 is also adjacent or a linear pair. 5, 7, and 6, 8. So basically, if they create a straight line, so if they are straight across the parallel or straight across the diagonal, then those are adjacent, which means they're supplementary. They add up to 180. What they have to do to be adjacent or to be a linear pair is they have to share both a side and a vertex. So think about angle 1 and 2. They share this middle point right here, and they also share this side. Okay? And they'll share this right here. This shares between angle 1 and 2. If you look between angle 1 and 3, they share this point, but they also share the side here of the angle. So that's how it works, and they're supplementary. So when you add them up, they are going to be the same. And those are just some examples, but there's many more. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and there's 1, 3, 2, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8. All those would be supplementary, which means they add up to 180. Which means if you get two adjacent angles or a linear pair of angles, you would put both of them together like this and add them up to equal 180. And then we would solve for x if we got one of those. So to recap that, we have alternate exterior, which are, if you have alternate exterior, they're congruent. Alternate interior are congruent. Okay? If you have a corresponding angle, it is congruent. If you have a vertical angle, they're congruent. So those are your congruent ones, the ones that are same. Then you have consecutive angles that are supplementary, and you have linear pairs or adjacent angles that are supplementary. So we had 6 different types of things that can happen, and 4 of those, they are equal to each other. They're congruent. In 2 of those, they add up to 180. So the only thing that I see students miss some points is they accidentally set them equal when they should be added up to 180, or they accidentally add them up to 180 when they should be equal. So you've just got to make sure what type of angle you're dealing with to decide whether it's going to be supplementary or congruent. So for today, you're going to look at first, and then you're going to look at an IXL. But the first thing you can look at is this classwork page. And on these, they were multiple choice, but on these, and these are we made these super easy. Only at the end will you have to be solving for x. Okay? Most of the time you're just looking through it. But you just want to tell what are those 2 angles that are marked? What type of angles are they? Okay? And then, so you're just going to circle the correct type of angle that it is. It's either corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive, or vertical. It gives you those choices. And then you're going to find the measure of the angles in this second part. And down here is where you'll finally have to solve for x. You have to decide, do I need to set them equal to each other, or do I need them both to add up to 180? So you'll decide what type of angles you have, and then you'll solve for x. The IXL, let me show you it too real quick, last second, and then I'll put it on the board for your work. But the IXL is going to be in geometry. It's already starred on there. It's D.4. Notice on this, look at these real quick. Look at the parallel lines. They're in a different direction. Still the same thing. Just think about turning your head a different way. Okay? So they're in a different direction. And it basically says if BCF is 112. So let's look at it. BCF would be talking about this angle right here. What is EFH? So now we got to say EFH. That would be talking about this angle right here. So if I know this one, then what is this one? And those would be corresponding angles. So if the BCF is 112, the other one's 112. Let's say I missed it. Okay? If I miss it, it's going to go down here, and it's going to show me that those are corresponding angles, which means they should have the same measure. So that's what you're going to look at on IXL. Again, you get to a 90 on the IXL, and that's 100. So you don't have to go through the challenge zone on there or anything. So those are the two things that we want to do today, the worksheet and then the IXL, and I'll put it on the board so you know which one it is. And then we'll be through the first section of Unit 3.